So this is a current topic and it is related to a new bill that the government of India has just now proposed to be a replacement of Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005. So this is a topic that is an evolving topic. As of now, it is very definitely important for your prelim examination. But at the same time, as the topic unfolds and there are points of criticism, it can be an important topic for main examination 2026. But we will come to that a little later. In this one, in the next 10 to 12 minutes, we are trying to understand what this topic is all about and how it is going to operate, why this new bill is being proposed. And as of now, by the very first look at it, what are the points of criticism? What are some of the critiques pointing out? So, ये सारी चीजें हमें देखनी हैं. So, essentially, the dimensions here are what is it all about? Why this bill is being brought? How this is supposed to be operated? And as of now, what are the criticism? You might be wondering, why am I not mentioning benefits? Well, benefits is a part of why. So there are certain benefits that we are seeing coming from this particular bill. Therefore, we are bringing it, and that explains its benefit, that explains its why, and how it is going to be operationalized. And then what are the points of criticism? That's what we are going to see. Let's start with the what part. All right. So in today's newspaper, I mean, right now on today's newspaper, not the print one, but the online newspaper, the news is flashing that in the winter session of 2026, the government of India is going to bring a bill that will eventually be replacing Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005. So this act is basically 2005 act and now it is 2025. And it is now the time that a rural employment guarantee law is brought, which actually reflects the changing realities of rural India, and it also caters to the changing aspirations of rural job seekers. राइट तो दो चीजें हुई हैं इन लास्ट 20 ईयर्स. एक तो रूरल इंडिया बहुत बदला है और दूसरी बात है कि रूरल इंडिया के एस्पिरेशंस भी बदले, उन लोगों के भी जिनको इस तरह के जॉब चाहिए. तो इन दोनों को बैलेंस करने के लिए टू कैप्चर द रियलिटी एंड एड्रेस दोज रियलिटीज which have unfolded in the last 20 years. So this proposed bill is actually being called Viksit Bharat Guarantee for Rozgar and Ajeevika Gramin Mission. Okay, so Viksit Bharat Guarantee for Rozgar and Ajeevika Mission Gramin. Okay, now if you see, Gramin itself is an acronym. This Gramin, if you write it like this in capital letters, so in itself Gramin is something that is an acronym. How? G comes from here, R A mission, right? And this N comes from here. So Gramin is acronym of this proposed new bill. And also the government has proposed VB GramG. So GramG is a very nice Hindi expression, GramG, right? And VB stands for Viksit Bharat, G for guarantee, RAM, that is Rozgar Ajeevika Mission, RAM, and G standing for Gramin, so GramG. So that's about the name. It is coming as an alternate. It will replace the MGNREGA, right? So it will be replacing Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. When did this come about? In 2005. So it will be essentially replacing this one. And now the question is, we will be getting into the details of how it is going to be operationalized. But first the question is, why this new bill? So first thing is that India is very actively pursuing the mission of developed India, Viksit Bharat. So when we reach the 100th year of our independence, we should be seeing ourselves among one of the developed countries of the world. And this new rural employment guarantee law, which will be coming about, will be aligned to the Viksit Bharat vision of India. That's one. Second thing is that in the last 20 years, in the rural areas, there have been socioeconomic changes. And if you want to know what are the socioeconomic changes, five main socioeconomic changes that have happened. First and foremost, better connectivity has happened. Better income has taken place. The rural households are now having greater access to income and all that. Third is electrification of the rural households, right? And I'm carrying this sheet so that I don't miss any point for you. And next is increased kind of communication connectivity. So first, when I said better connectivity, what I basically meant infrastructural connectivity through road, through trains and all that. But fifth and the major one is that the rural India is now asking for better job opportunities, which aligns with their aspiration for quality of life. So among these changed realities, perhaps the older act does not hold good. So now the reasoning, why? So there is better rural connectivity. Because of that, the rural workers have been migrating to the urban centers. There have been better self-employment opportunities also, like people going to nearby towns to work, maybe to run a small business and so on and so forth. So that is one. Second is, of course, enhanced household income. Next one is better communication network. So there is always a connect to the outside world. There is always changed aspirations and so on. Next one is rural electrification. And rural electrification itself is a big driver of rural development. And finally, changing aspirations. And all of these things require that we bring out certain changes, and hence the new bill. Now, when this bill becomes an act and when it replaces the earlier law, what are the things which will be changing? The first thing that will change, that earlier up to 100 days, minimum 100 days of employment was guaranteed. But practically, after 100 days, the system would not be recording any more job. So what was the minimum guarantee effectively became the upper ceiling of the employment. Now it is 125 days per rural household. So that is the biggest change, that in place of 100 days of rural employment guarantee per financial year, we are talking about financial year 1st April to 31st March. Okay. So now it has been changed to 125 days. So how it will be implemented? First, 125 days of rural employment for each eligible household per financial year. So that is one. Okay. Now, for the first time, it is no longer demand driven. It means earlier it was demand driven. You are one of the identified beneficiaries. You don't have work. You go to the MGNREGA system and say that I don't have a job, I need work, and it is demand driven, you will be getting the work. Now it is no longer demand driven. Actually, now the states will be offering employment. And earlier there was some sort of an open-ended budget that as many jobs that will be demanded, accordingly the states will be getting the allocation. Now the states are going to get a fixed budget according to the formula that is set by the central government, and within that budget a state has to offer. So that is the second change, that it is not demand driven. So I hope you are understanding that it is not demand driven. Rather than that, it will be having a fixed budget, and the state will have to make do within that budget. And if anything over and above that is spent by the state, in that case the state is going to cover the entire cost. Now the center is not going to bear. And that brings us to that earlier, right, entire wage, whatever you have to pay, was coming from the center. Like this was the earlier arrangement. Now this is going to change. For all states except two categories, and we are going to come to those two categories. But for all states except two categories, now 60% is by center and 40% by the concerned state. And what are the two exceptions? One is northeastern states and the Himalayan states. So northeastern and Himalayan states will be receiving 90% of the central funding, and 10% is what they have to spend on their own. And all those union territories which do not have their own legislature, those union territories will be getting 100% of central funding. Okay. So except two categories. And what are those two exceptions? One is northeastern states plus Himalayan states. They will be receiving 90% from center and 10% from the state. So that is their formula. Okay. And then UT without any legislature, they will be receiving 100% from the center. So that's a change. Another thing is, for the first time, a system of pause has been introduced. So basically, the system of pause is that within a financial year, up to 60 days can be the duration, up to 60 days cumulatively, सबको जोड़ करके, can be the duration when this scheme can be paused, means during which the scheme will not be available. Now, that is basically done to meet the demands of labor in the agricultural sector during the peak agricultural season. Because during the peak agricultural season, there is labor shortage always, and much of the labor is working in these schemes. So, for the first time, there has been a system of pause up to cumulative, up to cumulative 60 days. And why up to 60 days? To meet the demand of labor in agriculture sector during the peak agricultural season, sowing, harvesting, and all these things. Okay. Now there are certain other things. There has been a much greater say given to the center, especially in what is the budget. Second, on what criteria you will be receiving the fund. So all the states are not going to receive the equal amount of fund. There will be criteria laid down by the central government, and the central government, following that formula, will be allocating fund to the states, and that will be the state's budget within which they have to run this scheme. Last but not the least, central government can decide even the districts in which the scheme needs to be rolled out, up to that level. So this is going to be controversial, but well, so there will be many powers to the center. And what are the many powers? First, the formula for allocation. Of course, the fixed budget. And finally, the even the districts where the scheme will be run. Finally, couple of points which will not be so much important for your prelim examination, but for your main examination, this will be important. And we will be talking much more about these criticisms once the bill is presented, once more opinion comes. But by very look at it, the main criticism point is that the central government has much expanded role. And that goes against the federal spirit. I hope it is clear, right? Second thing is that proportionately, the say of the state government, the power of the state government has been curtailed. The financial burden on the states has increased. Earlier, the entire wage bill was kind of covered by the central government. Now, up to 40% will be coming to the state. So, suddenly the state's financial burden has increased. And to an extent, the right to employment has been diluted because it is no longer demand driven. It is going to be within the fixed constraints of the budget. And then there is a provision of pause. So imagine someone who has not gotten an agricultural job during the peak season, and that person needs a support from this system, but this system has been paused for that period. And last but not the least, for the members of the scheduled tribe living in the forest who have no other means of employment, earlier up to 150 days of employment was available to them. Now it is going to be merely 125. That is how it is. So these are a couple of points of criticism. But I think for prelim, you don't have to worry about it. The things that we have discussed until now, that is going to take care of your prelim requirement until the government decides to make certain changes and all before the bill is tabled, or this will be your complete go-to coverage for the prelim. So I think that's it on this topic, and we will be following it up with more topics.